Welcome to Megan's Mystical Mashup, a conversation between me and a guest about life, the universe, and anything in between. My name is Megan Rounds, and I am so happy to see you here today. Today's guest is originally from Michigan and now lives in the Raleigh, North Carolina area with his two cats, Ben and Jerry. He's been a member of the Lightworkers Lab for a year and can primarily be found in the Circle and Lab Lightroom. His specific modalities are empath, intuitive, clairvoyance, clairsentience, with some shamanic and Reiki master training thrown in for good measure. Photography is both a career and a hobby for him. For his day job, he photographs vehicles for a large multi-location dealership so that customers will be able to view the photos online, which I know I personally have found very helpful in my own vehicle search in the past. Outside of his main job, he also does wedding photography and his healing work. He has his own unique healing method, which sounds fascinating from what I've read about it, and which I really hope we'll have time to talk about at some point in our conversation. Please give a warm Lightworkers welcome to Aaron Gustwiller. So as we talked about when we did our practice run, I like to start out with one big, huge question about your spiritual journey. And I usually ask it two ways: what's your spiritual journey and or your path to the Lightworkers Lab? Oftentimes those two intersect, but one is usually longer than the other, and that's the one I want to go with.
Okay, well, the longer one is actually my spiritual path.
Right.
I was guided to the house I bought in 2012. There was a friend who did ghost hunting, and I met her at a local bar. She bought me a drink, and she finally invited me on a ghost hunting event, and it was local. And I already thought my house was haunted. I just felt like somebody was watching me. And as a kid, I saw ghosts waking up from dreams. And my mom just shut it down about age 9, saying I was just waking up, continuing a dream. So I kind of forgot about all that until later. And so anyways, I started doing EVPs after that first ghost hunting session, using my phone. I could hear after editing the sound and through software, I could hear the messages or conversations or directly talking to me, communicating with them, but nobody else could hear it. So then about 2 weeks into doing that, my friend was telling me I need to, slow it down, not do it so much. And then at midnight on July 17th, going to bed, I shut my door, even though I live alone. I didn't have my cats at the time. And so, and I turned the light off. I stepped towards my bed, and a cold air blew past me on the right shoulder. And I stepped back and turned the light on, opened the door. I kept the door open, but I turned the light off, and then I went to bed. And about 2 o'clock, I went out to my car thinking maybe just because I felt negative energy in the house for a little while. And so I went outside and started saying, I was never really religious, but reaching out to, say a prayer. And after I said the prayer, getting rid of a devil and Jesus and helping, getting help. I had my keys in the cup holder, and that's when I started seeing golden orbs coming out of my front door and out of my roof. And so then I was trying to reach for my keys, and then a cold hand touched my hand right next to me in the passenger seat. And so I, left my keys behind and went out the door, past our driver door, and went to the street. And it was a, dead-end street and a little neighborhood, but, 2 o'clock in the morning, nobody's really watching me. So, but anyways, I'm feeling that cold air, and it's July, no breeze, warm, and I'm feeling this cold air around me. And I kind of jogged away from it, like, give me space, and went around me again. And I pushed it, kind of pushed it towards the front of me. And I'm seeing the humongous blue and orange orbs coming on my house, going diagonal to me. And then I looked online, seeing what that meant, these colors, orbs, and first website I went to, there was just blues, protective, orange is more of a warning, red's even more of a warning, bad things around you, protecting you. So I felt comfortable with the spirit, this cold air in front of me, and I brought my arms way out, and I said, give me a hug, and I felt the cold air breeze on my chest, and I said, well, pat me on the back, and as I was still feeling the cold air, I felt 3 gusts of wind on my back. And, well, I'll try to shorten it up a little bit right here, but, well, I stepped forward on the grass, and I thought I saw apparition, or, in the glass in my front window, and then I felt 3 sharp pains in my left ankle, kind of warning me not to, you know, that's bad energy in there. So I go on my back deck, and a motion light comes on with a bee in there, and then I feel a burning sensation on the back of my leg. I bend down to kind of rub it off, and then as I look up, I'm looking off the deck, and I see a big orange orb off the deck. So I get down, and I see a red orb going away from my house. So that's when I started walking to my friend's house, which is only half a mile or something away. And my right hand was cold and walking with me, the spirit. And as I got to the road, I said, "Are you Jesus?" And I dropped to my knees crying instantly. And I got up, and I said, okay, should I continue going to my friend Carla's house? And my tears dried up instantly. My emotions went away. And then I kept on walking, and there's this little school that does say Little Angels Preparatory School, but what I saw was saints, the word saints. And then I kept on walking, and then turned down the road, and I said, well, hold my hand, because my hand was open, and then my hand closed. And ever since then, that's how I communicate with spirit. My fingers open and close. That's how I do my healing work. And so I communicate telepathically to them. My toes can move, anything can, you know, whatever. Emotions, images pop in my head, feelings. So I keep on walking, then the spirit pushes my hand forward because I told it to give me a sign to move forward. And then my knocking on the door, 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever, my hand was a magnet to her door, and just keeping because I felt the energy. So she smudged me and felt light as a feather. We smudged my car, a house. That didn't really do much, and that maybe kind of makes me wonder, you know, does it really work? Because I did go to sleep for a little bit, and I went to work, and that felt like that spirit was always around me. And got back home, talked to my mom and stepdad on the phone, and on that
FaceTime?
iPhone message
FaceTime?
FaceTime, yeah. So we did that, and then I had my bedroom door open with the living room light shining on it, and that's when I saw this shadow come up from a point and then come back down, and it was a man in a flat-brimmed hat, and that's called Hat Man. And I didn't know Hat Man until months later when I was watching Ghost Whisperer, and they drew it on a piece of paper. Well, she did, the main character of the show, Jennifer Love Hewitt, talking to a professor, and she said, you know, it's this entity that is worldwide known, and he's more of a negative entity. And then I had a flashback sometime later too, turned off my light in my bedroom, and I had a flashback to about 8-9 years old, that Hat Man came next to my bed, and I rolled over scared, and then I looked back and he was gone. So he was actually standing, not just a shadow, you know. So I remember that. So anyways, I did go through a lot of stuff. My friend, retired now, therapist, and he came down, tried to help me through it. Didn't know what was really going on, but he knew I wasn't schizophrenic or anything. But at some point, it was just kind of my friend, him and my other best friend, who didn't really know much but what was going on. But they said, "Would you want to go to the hospital?" And I said, "Fine," because I dropped off Kurt, my friend, the therapist, at the airport. And so, anyways, as we're driving, he got off the airplane, and we picked him up again. And as we're driving, I got scratched on my thigh, like a cat scratch. And so I was psychically attacked. And I didn't know what that was until later. I saw on Ghost Adventures that you get scratched on the back or wherever, and I got it on the thigh. And so I went to the hospital here locally, and I was in a bed with a nurse next to me all the time. And then I ended up going to a more of a place where drug addicts go, and just rehab place or whatever. And it's not a great place. They didn't really help me, and Kurt got me out of there. And so
Was that because they didn't believe your story, or
I was on psychic whatever the meds
with psychotropic drugs and
for trying to block those images or whatever.
Okay.
And I knew I didn't need it, but nobody, well, even Kurt was like, I don't know what to do, but you should take this. And I'm like, I don't want it. And so anyways, it wasn't until, so that started in July and August, and until Body Mind Spirit Expo, I was told by a medium here that he told me a lot of stuff. I didn't really enjoy the reading, but at the end he gave me a hug and he said, you have a lot of healing energy. And I didn't really know what that meant. It felt good. But he told me about Body Mind Spirit Expo, which comes twice a year here in Raleigh. And so I went and got readings from other mediums, and they much better readings. And it was just telling me I'm a medium, so I could go learn how to do Reiki or shaman. It's Reiki pretty much. And but you'll do it your own way, and that's kind of how I always do my own way. And so it kind of led me to do Reiki and shamanism, and learning how to focus my way of working with spirit. So yeah, long distance over the phone or in person, I can do healings. And again, I just communicate. I feel the person, their energy, or I hear a word that relates to an emotion that, right now is an emotion that they're dealing with. And then I ask for an age, and my hand moves as age 5, age 10, and then it kind of relates to that emotion. A lot of people do remember an event or around that time, or and it kind of helps them to understand why they have these emotions and why it's controlling their life, and how to heal the past, and forgiveness and compassion for themselves and others.
Do you use that? So you incorporate Reiki as well as the shamanism that you've learned into that?
I feel like like I have stones, kuyas they're called, and there are 7 of them right in front of me, and my hands are guided over which one, and then I do a counterclockwise circle, and the energy comes up, and I actually feel like the stone could be this, from a kuya could be this far away, and I can feel cold air or warm air coming up, and then I kind of just remove that energy. So that's the shamanic way. And then the Reiki is obviously flowing through too, and giving healing energy at the same time. Or different times I hear, I'm just getting a sense of stop moving and just kind of give the energy, or I'm removing it quickly because the emotions come up. And so words are emotions and energy, and that's what I start with, is trying to get their emotions going to understand themselves better, know thyself better, and then kind of know their past and how it relates to now. And the more they talk, the more it comes out, and the more I get information, and I can direct the conversation. And not that I'm in fully control, because I get message from spirit, and I give them affirmations, or just word of advice. Sometimes mediumship comes in, and loved ones come through for support, or just forgiveness, or anything, or no loved ones come through. It's just at that time for them. So
wow. Well, it's fascinating how that all happened, and I have a couple of questions from this story. So you mentioned EVPs. Can you talk a little bit about that, and if you have any, is there an app or something that you use to record those?
Well, just a voice recorder on my phone. Probably anyone works. I'd have to look at the name, or which one it was or it is. I still have it, but I don't really do those anymore that much. But yeah, even a video. I've done a video in the middle of the night. And so anyways, EVP is electronic voice phenomenon. And record or video, and I've heard, without editing. I have a video without editing, and it has a voice of a spirit talking. And so with editing, you slow down the voice, slow down the speed of it, or the pitch. I don't remember what the tones, but Adobe Audition, which you have to pay for yearly, but that was the best one I felt to edit them. And so it did really create a good connection with me to them, but I also heard negative stuff too, and positive, so I don't really want to bring that negative side back in. And
Sure.
so
Totally fine. Did I hear you say, though, that you could hear things that other people couldn't in those messages, even when you slowed them down?
yeah,
Okay.
they heard static and I heard a message.
Wow.
But
Okay.
sometimes, I mean, I even heard, oh yeah, this one was pretty good. I heard, I was this thunderstorm going on, and that kind of gives them energy too, I've heard, the energy of thunderstorms. And so I did a recording, and a male and a female came walking in, and then the male wanted to leave, but the female didn't. And then I heard Jesus come in, and that was before the awakening part, that one evening on July 17th. And I was surprised by it. I don't know. I deleted all of the EVPs after I got scared and kind of wanted to get rid of that everything.
I hear you.
So yeah.
Wow. But and so so how long had you lived in that house before that happened?
20 September-ish, early September, I moved in 2012, and then 2015 summer, July. July 4th was that first EVP night of that ghost hunting, and then the 17th. Between that time and that time, I was recording a lot on my own and editing, and so.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's quite an awakening with a bang, really.
Yeah.
Big way. So do you still live in the same house?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So it's all cleared?
I feel it's good energy now. I don't feel negative at all. I mean, there was residual stuff going on. They were interacting with me a little bit more a few years ago, but I don't get I mean, I get my canned communication still, but it's not as like picking on me or, touching me in inappropriate places and stuff like that. So,
yes.
And messing with my mind and stuff like that. And sometimes I haven't had in a little while, but dreams about spirits, and I'd run back to my bed, and I didn't see my body or anything, but I just remember, running like I'm still in my house, not like you're in some other house, like sometimes I have dreams of, but it's actually this house, and just feeling the scared feeling of the spirits. But when I wake up, I want to experience, but I'm scared in the dream for some reason. So yeah, my house feels good now. So.
Well, and so did you bring the cats in after that point then, I'm assuming? Was it for that purpose or just for?
It was after I returned back from the hospital. No, it was actually right before I went to the hospital. Somewhere around that time. Anyway, somebody told me that cats are supposed to help with spirits. But these two, I don't know, because every time I hold them, maybe it's just they don't like being held, but there was one time I did hold Ben, and he was in my arms here, and his eyes got really big, and he was following a spirit. His eyes went back here, and then he got scared. He ducked his head and meowed real quick, and then he, went away from me. And then I turned around, I don't want you here anymore, and I saw the silhouette of a spirit, like a white, just a body, like the body. And he went out my window in my bedroom and kind of peeked in. I've seen that before too. There was another time when I came home and I felt like spirits followed me home, and my cats got scared. They went darting on me at my bed, and I heard shut the door, my bedroom door, and I shut it, and I saw that same kind of white silhouette of a spirit go through the door, and then they said to open the door, and my cats were fine. So they got rid of whatever was there.
Well, that's helpful.
Yeah.
I bet they were maybe surprised coming in. Oh, okay, this is one of those types of houses. We're going to have to work a little bit here.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that you had these readings, and people were telling you that you had healing energy and you'll do it your own way and stuff like that, but that you
Yeah.
didn't really like the first reading, but others you did maybe more. I'm just curious, what was it? I don't want the specifics, but what was it that made a good versus a not so good reading for you?
Well, the bad reading, it just didn't feel like something about. I haven't listened to it very often, but something about. He did say something about my parents not wanting me or not ready for me or whatever, and just felt bad for me, and that, like, my life was as a child was terrible, or so it was very depressing when I really wanted answers for what was going on with me, and so
Well, yeah.
it was just he's a type of medium that is always right, and you're not right, and you have to figure it out.
So like
And I
an,
didn't. And I'm totally opposite. I'm like, I'm very open. Like, hey, this is what I'm getting. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
yep.
And I'm usually right, but I don't need to be right. And so the other mediums were just kind of like just very helpful and very, just loving of giving me the answers I needed at that time. But he did give me, the hug and said I had healing energy at the end. So
So you did have a good takeaway, at least
take away,
partially,
yeah,
right?
at the door, yeah.
I asked that question because there's a lot, there are people within the Lightworkers Lab who talk a lot about, well, I'm trying to think of the best word, but like a quality reading, reading that's authentic, I think is maybe the word that's used more often than not, versus one that's really ego-based. And it sounds like that may be a part of the difference here. Lauren
Yeah.
Antoa-Fermo, if you're familiar with her, has talked a lot about it. She's very passionate about that. You'll find in some of the things that she writes how passionate she is, because it just plain pisses her off when people use negative, fear-based approaches to readings, and that ego piece about I'm always right and who cares about the person I'm reading. That's a real clear
Right.
sign. So I'm thank you for sharing that, because I think it really reinforces that. That difference.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my readings are there to help guide that person to their own healing,
Yeah.
to understand themselves. So it's not my place to tell them how they feel or what their life was about. It's just like I'm guiding you, and
Right.
if you don't get the information, if I age 10 and you don't get it, and I'm not going to force it, and you're not feeling it right, you're not ready for that, whatever experience happened, or
Well, and I hear
whatever happened.
it's about them, right? It's
Yes,
about the person you're
it's about
working
them.
with, not about you. And the
Right.
same for anyone who does a reading or a healing. It's like if you're doing it for yourself, then that's not, you can enjoy the work, but
Yeah.
it's not like, well, I have to be right. And if you don't get it, then I'm going to tell you what it is, and that's right.
Yeah.
Wow. And I'm sorry that you had that experience, but I'm glad that you had that takeaway, because it sounds to me like that really shifted something in your trajectory. At least that's how it sounds. What were you doing? I mean, before then, you just healing and all of the things that you're doing now in terms of that aspect of your life weren't there. I mean, you weren't doing
Oh,
it.
no, no, not the healing, right? I didn't know anything about spirituality or to that extent, healing and all this. I was never really religious, and so, anyways, it did change my perspective on life and my direction in life and helping people more with disability, and um,
I'm
yeah.
really curious, after that time, it sounds like then you skip to when you're now doing it. How did you get to the point where you started actually healing other people, or where you decided to take Reiki or shamanic training and incorporate these things into your practice?
So yeah, I mean, at the Body Mind Spirit Expo, that first one, it was February 2016, and um, I was just told, about Reiki and shamanism. And actually, I went to this Dancing Moon. It's a bookstore, metaphysical bookstore here in Raleigh, and went there. And there's a speaker there, and it was free. And she says, "Well, after you could send her an email with any question." I said, my question was, what will I be doing in the future, or whatever, about my path in life, or whatever I asked. But she said shamanism and Reiki. And then even before I even sent that email, at the bookstore, I found a brochure of a shaman and local. So she told me what I needed to hear, and I moved forward. And I started doing Reiki shares with the local teacher here too, and that took little longer to feel that urge to take a class. But everybody was feeling that warm energy that was coming from my hands, and felt good, and so
Is Reiki,
eventually.
I'm sorry to interrupt, is Reiki shares a thing where a group of people practice on each other?
Yeah, novices or advanced, and we just get together and split up. And she had 3 different tables at the most, and in her house, and we just split up and took about, was it 4 minutes per side if somebody wanted to flip over, and then we changed people, and so it was pretty nice, and sharing any messages, and I was getting messages, and that kind of just helped me be more confident in my connection with spirit and what I was getting. And I was doing healings for family members or friends, um, until I got better practice and really wanting to do the healing. And there was one night when I was driving home, well, it was Friday night, Friday at work. I was thinking, man, I really want to do this, and then I heard, it's gonna be, it's gonna be a slow start, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can hold off, And then Sunday night, I was driving home from a friend's house, and a red Ford truck pulled in front of me, an old one, and then turned left. But then the license plate says the letter R dash R. Yeah, R dash U dash RED. No, are you ready? Pretty much is are you ready, something like that. Anyways, so I got that message, are you ready? And then I woke up trying to think of business names, and a swan or lotus, and anyways, then I saw a car, a white Mercedes, driving to somewhere, and it had the name Swan on it that same day. So I worked at my business name, and I finally got it. So that's kind of led to that. And then I started the business in 2017 and got more work with a counselor. And I finally started work with a counselor and her clients, and kind of grew from there, and still building the business up. So
Sure. I'm curious how you use these gifts, if at all, in your day job or your photography practice in general, since it encompasses more than just your day job.
yeah, in life, just talking with spirit, and communicating, trying to, I don't know, yeah, sometimes you hear something, but you don't do it, and then you're like, oh, I should have done that, and I don't know, taking I, like, even yesterday, I was thinking, getting out of this parking lot, I should have went one way because it would have been quicker, and then I went the other way anyways, and I had to sit there forever to get through a light, and I could have went a quicker way. But it's just stupid things like that, or it could be bigger things, and I'm sure everybody gets that information. I just have the hand communication if I want that.
You reminded me of something with that, though. I drive my daughter to school every morning, and I had last year especially was really intentional about listening to which way I should go. There are multiple avenues, and it was developing trust in my intuitive and spiritual guidance, really. And I could tell when I'd say, no, I'm going to go this way instead. Every time there'd be like a traffic jam or an accident. And there was one time, that was actually earlier this year, when I dropped her off at school and I wanted to take a different way back home. And I took that way, and it was backed up because of a train. That I swear this train was just there for like an hour. It felt like it, at least. It was probably more like 20 minutes, but at 8 o'clock in the morning, you can that's a long time to wait for a train on a pretty busy road. So I decided to take a go around, and it took me longer. And by the time I got to the main road again, the traffic had opened up, so the train had passed and everything, but it delayed me getting back on that road. And I'm really glad, because as I progressed down that road, then I encountered a fatal accident. I wasn't in it, but it had happened really close to when I mean, I arrived shortly after it had happened, and I'm like, thank you for putting those obstructions there. Thank you, even though I didn't really listen and I should have taken a different way home. I took this way, and thank you for making it a pain in the butt, but one that I am really happy about, because I would not have wanted to be there at that time of that accident. And,
Yeah.
and it's really I think it's a fun, not that part, but it's a fun, easy, everyday practice to start building intuitive and spiritual trust in that guidance. I love that you do that and start recognizing, okay, yes, you told me not to go that way and I did it anyway. So, yeah. So, I think those are ways to really that are easy to build into our daily lives without much effort, yet can have really profound results in our openness, so to speak.
Yeah, it's kind of like not trying to control your life so much,
Yeah.
and just going with the flow and trying to, see where there's opportunity instead of struggle. And maybe even we see struggle. I mean, we create struggle probably a lot of times for ourselves. And, I just kind of guided in certain ways, and I meet people and I help them, and, it feels good. And
Well, and it sounds, I wrote down breadcrumbs. I had a mashup earlier this week with Christian Kuna, and he was talking about something really similar to you in terms of recognizing and heeding the messages as they come. And like following those breadcrumbs really seemed to pay off in, in living an aligned, authentic life in a way, and instead of saying, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm focusing and staying on the course, which is what a lot of advice about, building a business or doing other things, life affirming, they all talk about staying focused, sticking to your guns and things like that. And there's a benefit to that in some respects, but then we miss all those messages potentially. And that breadcrumb approach really seems to me to have really positive results. And because you're listening to the guidance, it shows up. Oh, here's some Reiki. You want to try and, practice that, or look at this cool thing on shamanism, or here's a person you might like.
yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. Oops. Oh, yeah, you were talking about was it kuyas?
Yeah, kuyas. They're stones.
Are they specific stones? I mean,
I just picked them out. There are things that I found on, maybe nature trails, or, my travels somewhere. And it was part of the class. We had 4 different classes. There were 4 days, 4 times a year. And we just picked out like 3 different stones at a time. And I have other stones that were part of it's called a mesa. And you enclose them all in this mesa. And I don't use them the way that we're taught, other than, putting them down, and they represent the heart and solar plex and all the different chakras. So my hands are guided over them. Not that I need them, because I actually have worked with spirit without them, and I just kind of like my back deck and my hands move, and I kind of know it's the heart or 2 chakras at the same time and how they're related at the particular moment that I'm working with them, and I'm helping them cross over. But with people, I pretty much just focus on that, using them long distance. In person, I just use their body, their chakra system. Usually you use the kuyas and they blow in their energy, their emotion to it. And that's how I was trained, but I never really do it that way.
Sure.
I just don't feel like I needed to do it that way. So,
hey, tweaking it to fit your style is an important aspect of this.
Yeah.
But it sounds to me like you use them as a tool.
Yes. Yeah, it's a tool. I don't really need them, but it's nice that they're here.
I haven't heard of that before, so thanks. That's pretty cool. And I like the idea of each stone represents kind of an intention or a purpose, and that you can use that as a tool, kind of like a pendulum, or other people might use, tarot cards and things like that. So it's that's really, so that was a part of your shamanistic training?
Yes, that's what.
Huh, cool. Okay. So I really want to talk about the photography aspect of your life. I have an inkling that your gifts show up that way as well. And
Yeah.
and I'm just really curious about how that might work for you. How did you even get into photography and
Okay.
wedding photography? That's pretty cool that you do that.
Well, it was, I was taking classes at a community college in Michigan, and it was for web design at the moment. And then I just bought a, well, actually, I went on a vacation with Kurt, that therapist, back in 2001, a cross country drive, and he had a all manual film camera, and I took pictures. They were kind of um, washed out, but the composition was good. That's what Kurt said. So I bought a 3 megapixel Sony Mavica CD 300. I still remember it.
Wow.
$700 at the time for 3 megapixels, and it burned on the CDs, the little tiny ones. And I just went out in nature and took tons of pictures, and that was my first love, was nature. And then I ended up going to another community college, but they had a really good photography program, Hasselblads and dark room and computers for digital editing and everything.
Hmm.
And they had, first 2 years there, you had 2 years at these bigger universities for photography. So, anyways, I went through that program, and then I thought I wanted to be a fashion photographer, so I went to New York for about 3 months, and New York wasn't for me, and fashion photography wasn't my style anyways either. But, because I went with Kurt one time with New York, and I thought there was a lot of good energy, and it's different when you move there.
Yeah,
For me.
I would suppose so.
So then I moved back to Michigan. Then my best friend, since the fourth grade, 9 years old, moved down here to North Carolina. I came down, watched the Super Bowl with them, and it was 50 degrees and a blizzard up in Michigan. So I moved down here, and then I met a person who did wedding photography. She had a Craigslist ad looking for a second photographer for weddings, and then she thought I was gonna be a girl for some reason. Even though
Oh,
my
just
spelling
assumed, huh?
just assumed, and she was from Michigan too. And so she had a wedding consignment store, and so she got a lot of weddings. I got a lot of experience, and eventually I was pretty much doing the photography. She was setting up people and posing them and stuff. So I just got the experience with that, and that was 2006, 7, 8, 9. So
Wow.
was doing a lot of weddings with her for a while, and then she kind of stopped doing them. And then, I still do them here and there, but I don't do as many as I used to with her.
Mm.
Still trying to build my name
Your
up
own?
there a little bit, but when that, and then eventually looking for a job other than what I was working at a print lab. It was after my father had passed away, and and I was looking for a job for so long, and it was 2009. That was March 2009. He passed away, and April 2009 is when I got the job photographing cars, and I was looking for so long, and I didn't know about this, but taking a walk during lunch, and I would always say, man, I want to be outside with my own camera taking pictures. I'd say that all the time. And eventually, I got hired by a company out in Las Vegas that allowed me to take pictures. It wasn't my camera until like 4 years later. Then I became an independent contractor. So it became my own camera. So I've been doing almost 10 years. And so that's pretty much my photography. I mean, I do enjoy macro flower photography and capturing the beauty of flowers and close-ups and nature and travel when I can, photography.
Yeah, when you were talking about nature, that really struck me as something that um, seems to align with all of the other spiritual things you talked about. Just the being out in nature. I love to take. I'm absolutely not a professional, but I like to take photos in nature as well. I don't. I look back in the photos that I've taken when I have traveled and things, and they're always of objects or like I like to take pictures in cities, and I used to like to take them in cemeteries as well. It's been a long time since I've done that, but we used to go to pretty interesting. I mean, like one time my husband and I were in Hong Kong, and we went to a cemetery on an island there, and that was it was a day trip, and he could care less about it, but it was like a thing that I really enjoyed doing. And I never really understood what the attraction was for me. That was well before I awakened, and I've always been attracted to taking photographs in cemeteries. But aside from that, nature is the other thing. But I hardly have any pictures of people. Becoming a mom, it's like, oh yeah, I better take some pictures of my daughter. I mean, it's pretty easy to do for her, but it's like, then it's only of her and the dogs. And it's like, okay, but we need some of all of the people. But instead I'm like, oh, look, there's a butterfly on a flower. Isn't that nice? And so, yeah, I totally, I find that really inspiring personally. And I think that it's, I almost wonder if it's one of those signs of an elemental attraction, to earth energy and things that travel in those realms. So Katie Pruitt says, if you're ever in Atlanta, stop by Oakland Cemetery. It's beautiful. I will, Katie. Thank you. I should get, I say I should get back into that. And I've been meaning to go back and look at some of those photographs because they're really, my mom especially was really just taken by them. It surprised me that my mom would be taken by photographs of headstones and mausoleums and things like that. But she's like, she wants me to post them all over the place. And I'm like, well, those were taken a long time ago. I don't have digital prints of any of them. And it's not something I do anymore so much, but mainly because I haven't gone anywhere to do it. For you, what are some of the places you've traveled to?
My favorite two spots have been Alaska and then Montana with the Tetons and Yellowstone and Glacier National Park. And then Alaska, flew into Anchorage and went up to the big mountain range up there. I can't remember the name. Mount McKinley.
Right. Is that's not a part of the Cascades, is it? I don't think it goes up. I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
I haven't been to Denver. I love the big Rocky Mountains like that. The big, because they call them mountains here in North Carolina, but I don't really.
They're different mountains there.
There's different mountains there.
Beautiful, beautiful mountains in North Carolina, but
Blue
different
Ridge,
than
Parkway, driving through them, but it's not the mountains I enjoy. But been up to New York, Maine, been to Boston, down the coast a little bit, East Coast, Arizona. Went out west to like Grand Canyon and Zion National Park and
Four Corners area.
Yeah, different areas over there, southwest, like over there. I can't think of all the.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, that's cool. It sounds like you've gotten a pretty good taste of the country. I was thinking, being from Michigan, what they called mountains there probably don't compare to what you see in North Carolina even.
There's just a hill or something.
I grew up in Wisconsin, so I totally get that. I thought there was once an episode of something like Bosom Buddies a long time ago, and I just laughed because I don't remember much about the episode other than they went skiing in Wisconsin and were trapped by an avalanche. And I'm like, that's physically impossible. There's no way you can have an avalanche in Wisconsin. It's not possible. And, it's like in Michigan, I think, has more hills than a good part of Wisconsin does.
Yeah, the northern Michigan will have the skiing stuff, but I never went up there anyway, so I was more the southeast corner.
Sure.
Near Lake Erie, yeah.
Well, so switching gears a little bit, how did you come across the Lightworkers Lab? What part of your journey?
Actually, I remember seeing the videos on YouTube, and then somehow I saw the Lightworkers Lab through Facebook, through the comments or posts on the YouTube, and so then I just started watching became a member of that way, and then I have done a few Facebook Live events
in the Lightroom, right?
In the Lightroom, yeah. And so really, that's pretty much the basic story of that. Just YouTube got me there.
Well, and I wrote down, there's a video that Crystal has done on Dominion that I wrote down earlier when you were talking about your story, because you kind of did that. I mean, whether or not you had seen that video to inspire you, but when you were telling spirits to, well, basically take a hike, that you didn't want them there, both with your cats, but also, when you were out of the house and things like that. That is, I'm going to put that in the show notes for other people who are interested, because that's one of the things that I hear most often as being a necessary video to watch, because it talks all about claiming your right of dominion in your space, in your physical body, but also your physical space. Spirit doesn't have a right to just come on, pop in on unannounced or uninvited and hang out. But most of us, well, never learned that. It's like you think that since they're, spirits, that they can do whatever they want. And it's like, no, you can claim your space. You can step into your power and just say, back off. And
I definitely tried. There was one time that Kurt was here at the time, and there was this lion roar that came out of my body that it scared him, scared me, on how, I was just like, get out of my house. And I just roared so loud. And I don't know if the negative energy was there or not. I just felt a lot of the cold pockets of air. It was this cold air, and I could feel it and not feel it. And just, so I didn't know what was good and bad at some point. And I felt like I was in the middle. Like there was good, my father here, and, this negative energy here. And I felt like I was in the middle. And there was one time when I got out of that second hospital that I went to, and I had to go talk to a counselor therapist / priest, whatever, and he had a church. So the first mass I went to, there was they had the band playing, but then they had these kids that had a performance, and it was just right on the front stage, and they had people dressed in black and white, and then this normal just teenager in the middle, and they were tug of warring on them. And I started crying because that was me.
wow.
And that was the first mass I went to. That church was a little too strict for my taste, and just not what I got out of there. I was there for a little while, but the pastor was not my cup of tea, and not my direction I wanted to go.
Sure.
So I eventually stopped, and he kept wanting to up my meds, and so I put a stop to that. But it was just kind of like I'm being shown, that, hey, we're here for you, so.
Well, I hear that, something I really relate to is that cold energy, and not really knowing at the time what that means. I feel cold energy. I'm not able to see, well, I see every now and again very little. Like I can see dark mass, and I see a lot of orbs. I see things out of the corner of my eye that I used to discount, and now I don't. And I'm trusting it a lot more. But that cold air energy is hard to decipher because it's cold. And what does that mean? I know there's somebody around, but I don't know their intention. And more, it used to really scare me, but now it doesn't so much anymore, because it's like, okay, well, I'm assuming everybody is benevolent, and that is good, and so far that's been the case. And anytime I feel any hint of, it's like if I start feeling fearful, then I just go with it and say, leave. And so far that's been what's happened. But there are people who can see a lot more clearer, and for me, I feel it more than see it, and that recognizing that the feelings mean something, that
They're just as valid as seeing it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And getting to the point where you can recognize that, I think, is quite a journey in and of itself, because we've been taught, most of us, if not all of us, have been taught at some point to discount the feelings we have and put them to the side. And I'm curious about that, because it's, I don't remember actually reading this in your introduction now, but I'm just going to take a quick look. Yeah, okay, yeah, I did, because it was the first one, because you're an empath. And you're, in my understanding, a pretty strong empath. So how did that affect you growing up? When did you, was it during this awakening that you realized that was the case, or have you always really known that you're attuned to, at an emotional level in ways that other people may not be.
I was always a sensitive, I assume, like, I don't know, emotionally sensitive. Um, and, but you can go through life and not really see what you really are until you're shown it, like I have been. Maybe I would have known things as a kid, but I had a normal childhood as, well, not that it's not normal, but I mean, that
What is
I
normal
didn't have
these
those
days?
experiences. Yeah, I didn't have those experiences through life of, but I could have known things and not really known what that meant, you know. So,
Did you
and yeah, but,
always, oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was
You go
just going
ahead.
to ask, as a kid or growing up, I mean, I imagine, well, maybe not. Okay, so I was always told not to be so sensitive. My dad was trying to protect me. I learned later on, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I was sensitive, and it was constantly being said to me. You know, I was constantly being told, you know, I had to have thicker skin. I had to stop being so sensitive. And I'm kind of like, well, that's just not possible. You know? I mean, I tried, and there are points by which I think I did toughen up in that respect, until I just couldn't be that way anymore. And I'm curious if that was something that was enforced with you as well.
I don't recall that. I mean, I remember one time, I don't remember who even said it, but it was a male figure, whoever it was. Like, trying to think back, but telling me to stop crying. You know, but most time, yeah, maybe I did shut it down a little bit more at some point, but I don't feel like I was. I don't remember much of being shut down
Good,
emotionally.
good. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, my
I
mom was definitely she's sensitive and she's definitely understanding. So I grew up more with her than anybody else. So
I figure my dad told those things to me, and this is something I've realized over the past year, especially when visiting with my daughter, where he has done the same thing and made comments about her sensitivity. And it's like, I get very protective when that happens because, you know, it brings back memories of my own and being told not to be that way. But I realize now that he was doing it in it, out of love because he was concerned with how other people would respond to somebody so sensitive, and he said as much with her that he was afraid she was going to get picked on and all these other
yeah,
things. And I think that was the case with me too, and I think it's there because that was likely his experience, which he never talks about, but I can tell he's a sensitive guy who just tends to block it all out. And I think his dad was too. And it's really interesting to start looking at the family pattern there, without realizing that growing up, how big of an impact that likely had on the way that 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 they see sensitivity in general.
yeah. It's kind of like I'm gonna be having my first booth at the Body Mind Spirit Expo here in February.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, I'm gonna have a lecture too, and that's part of that lecture is the way we feel about ourselves has been created by other people's beliefs. So what's your truth? Your
Yep.
truth is what somebody else has created as their truth.
Yep.
And to break that and understand, know thyself better, and how, you know, like H5, where something happened that created that issue within you about yourself,
Yes.
and how you see the world.
I
So,
talk the same. I say the same thing when it comes to mindset because I believe that our mindset is primarily created by other people.
yeah,
You know, and not they're all trying to do. Usually, it's out of a sense of love and protection, but it's their stuff that we then take on and start to own as our own, and then we form beliefs around it. We act, you know, according to those beliefs, and then at some point, if we're lucky, we start realizing, hey, this isn't my stuff; it's theirs.
yeah.
And then there's a big deconstruction period that takes place while we dismantle all of those things and start wondering what is mine, you know, especially if you're a sensitive person.
And you can see that within your home, within the community, within the state, country, world. You know, it
Yep.
just expands, and you know, I feel the world's shifting, but we have to go through,
A
you know,
lot.
that shift of seeing what we don't, what we are not.
Yes,
By seeing what we're not, you know, we become who we are.
exactly. I mean, and creating something fresh, you know, and what is that? Which is kind of hard, I think, at a personal level, but also a societal level to determine what's going to take the place of all this stuff that I used to rely on as being a part of me when in fact it really isn't.
Yeah.
And for me, it's great to have that, seeing all of that great opportunity and potential, but it's also overwhelming and it's easy to just get stuck going, okay, but I don't know. I have to make a bunch of choices now about what do I believe? What does represent me? And I feel like from the empath standpoint that I've taken on so many things of other people that it's really a challenge to create my own sense of self. And and especially when in relationship, because it's like I'm getting influenced by the people in my household. I'm getting, influenced by my family members. And it's like, well, I don't really want to be a hermit, and go away. It's really hard to hear and sense the things that are really true for me when when what I call in some respects interference from other people's energy, because I seem to receive it so freely, even when I try to put protections in place to contain that.
Yeah, you try. Some people restrict what they want for the satisfaction of others too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of that really starts to show in conversations or even when watching the news and things like that. It's almost like you start to recognize BS in a way that it's like you can't deny it anymore. It's like, oh my gosh, this person's talking to me and I'm just listening to them talk and almost trying to convince themselves of their own truth. And while really they think they're trying to convince me, but I'm like, yeah, this is all about you convincing yourself. I don't have anything to do with this stuff. And that can be really empowering to recognize in other people. But
That's
yeah, it's almost a bunch of subtle shifts in how we perceive all of these things around us when we start to realize that it's mainly other people's stuff that we've collected and don't need anymore.
yeah.
Well, that's really cool that you're going to that expo, and congratulations and getting to talk as well. That's a pretty big deal, I would imagine. Are you hoping
Yes, it is.
down the road, is your vision to become independent and do your healing and spiritual work more exclusively, or is that something that you really just want to keep as a side role in your life?
Again, looking back where I thought my life would be, who knows, back then. Yeah, so, I'm open to. I would love to do it full time. I'd love to do a lot of things. We'll just see which direction I'm heading towards, and I feel like even my health wise, just physical health, mental health, it just kind of directed me to this point in my life where I'm at, and who knows what the future holds, who I meet, who I get contact with, direct my life in any other direction or this direction,
Okay, so oh well, good.
But yeah, I'm just saying, about control in your life, you always want to control it, but then you restrict yourself too when you're trying to control it so much. And
Yeah.
I've done that quite a bit, trying to. I want this, but it's not working out. But I want this, and you're missing out on other opportunities that's more right for you.
Have you
And I'm
gotten
not saying about the healing, but I feel like healing is the direction I should be going in, and I need to focus on that and continue going forward with that.
Have
We'll
you
see.
found a point by which you are trying to control and realize, no, I need to let go of that? I mean, how do you get to that point? Or is there is there something in that process where you just now you're like, nope, not working, let it go.
Yeah, it's just about emotions, how you feel when you're doing something, and if it's doesn't maybe feel good or easy, but you want it so bad. It could be in a relationship. I mean, or it could be in a career or whatever it may be. If you don't feel good doing it, and you need to focus on your emotions. Kind of like when you said the negative energy in the room, and you focus on that energy. Does it make you feel good or bad? You might not see it, but is the emotions telling you otherwise? That it's bad for you. So.
Well, and I love that. It's basically getting I mean, I see things in terms of external world and internal world, and those even wanting to control life is trying to control an external world. But until we pull that inside and really sense what is important to us, and if this is, is it true? Is it true, or is it, maybe false? I mean, a false belief that this is going to be the best thing in my case, and really honing in on those emotions and how it feels to us is a really important piece. So it's kind of a both and. It's kind of where I'm headed. I'm just talking as I go, but it's like, oh yeah, because if you're only focused on the external stuff, then you're doing it at the expense of the internal. If you're only doing the internal stuff, then nothing's showing up in your material world. And so how to find that balance, I think, is, well, definitely an important piece I'm working on.
There's always a message within, a learning lesson within your struggles and about yourself, and maybe your career direction in career or relationships, trying to find the positive, what can be learned from them to better yourself for the future opportunities.
Yep. I'm a big person on lessons, what's learned, what do we have to gain from this experience? Not gain, but, what have I learned from this experience? How can I move forward in a way that either prevents some of these experiences from happening again, or creates more experiences like this again, the ones that I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's really, okay, so we only have about 10 minutes left, and I just want to ask you about the painting behind you, because it is striking. Was there a story behind it?
Yeah, it's somebody that I did a healing. She was in my psychic development class that I was taking, and we did a trade, and I said, well, you paint, and I'd love to have one of your paintings. Paint me something. I like a wolf and a moon, and so I gave her a healing, and she gave me a painting for it. So
wow, that's excellent. Nice. I love the barter idea.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I woke up this morning and it was daylight, although now I'm questioning whether I was really awake, because I had these weird experiences this morning where I thought I was awake and then I wasn't, and then I wasn't awake but thought I was. Anyway, I heard a bunch of coyotes. We do have coyotes in the back of our yard. I know that's a wolf, but that usually we hear them at night. And we heard the pack this morning, and it was daylight. I shouldn't say we, because I haven't asked anybody else if they heard them. I heard them. But I might have been in this hypnagogic state. So now I'm like, were they really there? But hearing them this morning and then seeing that painting, it's like, wow, that's, it's just been attracting my eyes throughout our conversation, because it's like, oh, that is just a really neat thing to have in your background.
Maybe that's your spirit animal.
Could be. Yeah, calling to me. That would make sense. Well, we are about 10 minutes out. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Anything that's top of mind that you want to bring forth? Stuff you're working on, or not working on, but like, what are your focus of late in terms of, your healing or metaphysical stuff, topics?
Well, I'm still just working on my speech for that Body, Mind, Spirit Expo. You said something about books. Good books to read. I always liked The New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. That was really transformational. It was right after I got out of a relationship, and it really spoke to me on how relationships are and how they, the dynamic of them, about the ego, and about I have the thought process of who I think I am and who I think the other person is, and that's false. And then she has the same thing, and so it's 4 false people in this relationship, and how we get together to try to solve our past issues. We expect the other person to help us, but we don't even know what that issue is, and we just kind of, unconsciously, subconsciously, try to heal the past through our emotions and how we react to that person. So it was a really good book for me.
Excellent. Well, I happen to have that book and haven't read it yet, so thanks for bringing it forward because now it's moving up on my list. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other books or resources that you'd recommend?
Um,
It could be meditations or thought leaders, books, music, movies, TV shows, things you enjoy.
no, I mean, I could probably, if I would have planned better on that one, maybe I would have thought of something. But the Gaia Network obviously is a good source of a
Oh,
lot of videos.
yeah.
Oh yeah, this popped in my head. Emotion, E-Motion. That's a really good movie or documentary about emotions, and that's something good to watch.
Was that from Gaia? Was that it? I think I had seen that
Yeah.
promoted through that. Okay, good. All right, so I'm writing that down so I can include all of those in the show notes. Let's just take a couple of seconds, see if there's any questions here. I mean, some people share your love of photography and being out in nature. Um, there's some things you mentioned that are on other people's bucket lists as to visit, like Glacier National Park in Yellowstone and Grand Teton. Or no, some have been to Grand Teton and Zion. Um, let's see. Somebody else had seen the Hat Man when they were a child. I've heard of Hat Man too. I don't believe I have encountered, and nor do I want to, that. But I've heard of him through a number of different people. Let's see. Yep, I'm not seeing any particular questions. So why don't we just conclude now? And thank you, Aaron, for taking the
You're
time
welcome.
to talk with us today. It was really a pleasure to hear about your story and get to know you a little bit better. I, as mentioned, will put show notes up from some of the things I documented, like you had said, ghost hunters and a couple of other things. So I'll put links to those for people who aren't familiar and may have an interest. Those will be up later this afternoon. A replay will be, well, you can always see the replay here in the Lightworkers Lab, but I'll also put an abridged or abbreviated replay with just our conversation without the good news and stuff like that up on my website and YouTube channel. Those will all be listed on my Facebook page. So if you check that out, you'll see all of those things. Also, Aaron's contact information and all of those things will be in the show notes. So ways to reach him and or work with him if you're interested. And then I just invite those of you listening or watching to join me in 2 weeks, where my guest will be Megan Hawkins. She's pretty awesome. All of my guests are awesome. And then on February 2nd, Groundhog Day, I have Lauren Antuoformo for her second appearance on the show. So keep those dates in mind. I'll post those also on my Facebook page for people who would like to know what's coming down the road for this show. And so thank you again, Aaron. It was a pleasure. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I hope to see you again in a couple of weeks. Okay. Bye.